Lance Miller is an award-winning speaker and trainer. He has delivered over 5,000 speeches in over 60 countries on public speaking, leadership, and succeeding against adversity. Lance is Toastmasters 2005 World Champion of Public Speaking. I competed against Lance at the semifinals of the World Championship of Public Speaking in 2003. I'm sure he remembers it well. I remember the elation of completing my speech and sitting down. 2 speeches later, I heard ka-ching, and my heart went kerplunk. That was my last international speech, by the way. Made it to international, or made it to the district finals. I still thought, well, I could still come in second. Well, Lance went over 2 seconds that day. 2 years later, I was at the International Convention in Toronto, Canada, and I heard ka-ching again. And the rest, as they say, is history. He has held numerous officer positions at the club and district level. He was instrumental in building his home club, Renaissance Speakers, to 95 members and the number 4 Toastmasters club in the world. Renaissance Speakers has continued to be one of the top 50 clubs in Toastmasters for the past 20 years. Lance worked with over 80 districts, helping Toastmasters win with Toastmasters. He is the founder and host of the World Champion Speaker Online Summit, where he shares the path and experience from 30 world champions of public speaking. Lance is a partner in Miller, Knutson, and DeRay LLC, specializing in corporate productivity and growth. His business experience spans serving as an executive with the 1984 Los Angeles Olympic Organizing Committee, Nestle, and Anheuser-Busch. He has developed sales and marketing programs across 8 different industries and completing 5 new business startups. Please help me welcome our guest speaker, keynote speaker tonight, 2005 World Champion of Public Speaking, Lance Miller.
Thank you, Richard, and thank you for everybody asking me to come see you this evening. As if you wonder what's going on, I had a business meeting I had to run up to Sacramento for the last couple of days, and I'm now zipping down the 5 freeway at 85 miles an hour. Fortunately, I'm not the one driving right now. But I just turned the driving over to my business partner, so we're making it go right today. That's sort of part of the Toastmasters. To make things go right and figure them out for ourselves. And I want to share with you some of the experiences I had in really figuring out how to make our club work. And part of it was, and I have to say, probably one of the biggest things I got out of my Toastmasters experience was the confidence that I could really think for myself, and I could figure out how to make things work on my own without needing somebody else to say, this is what you do, or having a manual I got to look it up in. I could actually figure it out for myself and what was going to work. One of the things I see a lot of people in Toastmasters do, and my club had gotten caught up in this a little bit, was we followed all the rules that we learned in our training, and we followed the rules that Toastmasters International told us what to do, but our clubs didn't grow. And that sort of sets up what my viewpoint of Toastmasters International is, and that is, it's a little bit like Home Depot. And Home Depot, you can go get all the material and all the supplies and all the tools to build your house, but they're not going to come build your house for you. You got to swing the hammer. You got to figure out what type of house you want to build, but you can get all the supplies at Home Depot to build it. And you'd think somebody was pretty stupid if you came driving by their house and they had a bunch of lumber sitting in the front yard, and you go, Joe, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm waiting for Home Depot to come build my garage. You go, they don't do that. But not that anybody on this call is doing it, but I've witnessed this in Toastmasters around the world, that a lot of people will start a Toastmasters club and they feel they're doing everything right in the club. They're doing everything they're instructed to do, but the club isn't growing. And you sort of scratch your head and go, well, I don't know, we're doing everything we were told to do. And this is where it's moving it over to really figuring out for yourself things that just say very fundamentally turned my club around. We had, when I joined the club, it was in like October of 1992. We had about 35 members in the club, which was a good, strong club. But by August, we only had about 12 coming to the meeting. And, you know, there were 5 of us, I think, showed up for a meeting one morning, and we didn't have a meeting. We had coffee. And we're trying to figure out if we're going to keep the club or we're going to close it or what we're going to do. And one of the guys at the, if we're going to do this, let's win with Toastmasters, or let's go do something else and win with it. And I've sort of paraphrased this to that. I don't clubs and Toastmasters are sort of like that. They just never seem to get off the ground, but they don't die. You know, and I'm sure the districts are the watch every year that they do, like they get a breath and they pay their dues, and they're going, they've got 10, 12 people in them or 8 people, and they never seem to like get moving, but they just hang on. And that's one of the most difficult clubs I've ever seen to run, is a club of only 8 or 10 people, because there's not enough people to really have a dynamic experience. And you know, like I said, one of the other people said in the meeting said, you know, Toastmasters, this is back in the 90s, we had a different distinguished club program, and they said, you know, they rank all the clubs, you know, let's be a top 10 club in the world. And we all thought that would really be winning with Toastmasters. Now, the simplicity of what happened with that was that we decided, there's the simplicity, we decided to build the club. And we decided to go someplace, which is really the essence of leadership. I read a great book on leadership. If you haven't read it, I recommend it. And it's called The Dictionary. And you look up the word lead, and you go down to the derivation of where the word lead comes from. Because, you know, there was a point in human history that the word lead did not exist. You know, we used to sit around a campfire and grunt at each other, and somebody says, well, when you do that grunt, what do you mean? And the word lead actually means to go. It means to go someplace. And so if you're going to lead somebody, it means you're going somewhere. And in our club, we had never decided to go anywhere. So we sort of met, and it was a little bit like being on a treadmill. We just sort of go to the meetings, and we weren't going any direction. And when we decided to build the club, and quite honestly, the 35 people didn't decide. The 5 of us at coffee that day decided to build a club. We had a direction and a destination that we wanted to go to. And Toastmasters talks a lot about this, like in their Distinguished Club program, and the whole idea of set out your goals for the year and things like that. But to me, that's a little bit esoteric on the way that goes about. First of all, you know, I got to tell you, I'm not really politically correct, and I don't pull my punches on this thing. I think in order to get things done, we have to be able to sort of look them in the eye and talk about the problems that we have. And I give you an example. It's about, 8 years ago, I went in the hospital with severe right side pain, and they took my appendix out. And that wasn't the problem. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm a little attached to my organs. You know, I don't like people yanking them out of my body because they think that's the problem. And it was a wrong diagnosis, and it didn't solve the problem. I still had severe right side pain. Now I had tapped out my medical deductible, and I wound up in Vancouver in extreme pain and couldn't get on the airplane, and had to lay on the floor of the airport for about 8 hours until I was able to get on the airplane and make it home. And there's a lot of times, you know, in order to solve things, we have to get the right problem with it. On that. So, like I said, one of the things that I see that in the Toastmasters environment is where are we really going? And it's like, well, you need to get 4 new members, you need to get 8 new members this year, and you need to get to just, you know, a couple people on the Distinguished Club program. But I think we're missing the element of what's really happening. Are we creating a really dynamic communication and leadership environment for someone to come into that can change their life? And that's really what we have in Toastmasters. And I think, it benefited us tremendously. That's why we're still here. And I like to say Toastmasters is a little bit like church from the standpoint that we revive the dead. And what I mean by that, you see these people coming to Toastmasters and they're a little huddled shell of a mass, and they can't hardly talk, and they're an introverted individual. And 6 months later, you can't shut them up. They are more alive than you've ever seen. And we see people come to life in Toastmasters all the time. And really what we're doing, we're giving people a safe place to get their feet on the ground, to get to really learn how to communicate, how to exist, learn how to live, and it's okay to talk. And if we look at what happens throughout the course of existence, our parents sort of tell us to be quiet and be still. And we go to school, we're not really encouraged to stand up and give an original thought. As a matter of fact, we're taught how to sit there and study what other people things should be different. So we're not encouraged to speak. And then everybody's had experiences where they said something stupid and everybody got laughed at, or they said something that was right, but everybody told them it was wrong. And so what happens is through this whole experience, it becomes unsafe to communicate. And Toastmasters is this environment where we can learn that it's okay, that we actually do have good ideas, we do have good thoughts, and we can get them out. And so we're really reviving people and creating an environment that we're excited to see new people come into and do the program and get what I call the twinkle in the eye and the spring in the step, and watch their self-esteem expand and their confidence expand and their competence be developed, so that they can actually go out and live the life and achieve the things they want. It's not just about getting a couple DCP points. Now, I'm not a big fan of this current Distinguished Club program because it really, quite honestly, it rewards mediocrity in the club level. And I think it was brought about because Toastmasters has always struggled trying to get clubs above 20 members. And I think there was a mentality, I haven't confirmed this anywhere, but when I looked at what they were trying to do, because I know how the old program worked, and I really liked it, but it was sort of hard for a lot of people to understand how it worked, but that's because we didn't teach it well. But they put this new one in, and they rewarded the club for getting 8 new members, and now it's like, I think, 4 level 1s and a couple level 2s and 1 or 2 level 4 and 5s, and we don't even reward people for really getting all the members in the club up to level 5. Getting some officers trained to do stay in time, it's really what we got to do to maintain a club. It doesn't really reward excellence in a club. But that being said, I want to say that there's no reason every club in Toastmasters is not President's Distinguished, because it is what you really need to do to keep your club at a base level. So what was it to really turned our club around? Well, there was a spirit of core that we had, that we wanted to build something great. We wanted to be a good Toastmasters club. And we really wanted, we were monitoring our growth in all the other clubs. When we started, we were like 7,000th in the world. And the first year, we just filled the forms out and sent our documents in, and we went up to like 114. And then the next year we were 56, and the next year we were 28, and the next year we were 14, and we were so close. And the final year we were number 4. But what we did, we really focused on the member achievement, and that DCP program also rewarded that. But there were a couple real big turning points in the club, and I'll share those with you. One was, we asked the members, when we started building, we asked the members why they liked coming to the club, because we had 12 people coming and we had, 17 or something that weren't. 23 that weren't, okay? And so people had stopped coming to the club. So the 5 of us split up and we called everybody and we said, what do you like? Why did you like coming to the club? Because they weren't coming to the club anymore. And the number 1 reason they said they liked coming to the club was they liked having fun. And the number 2 reason was they liked seeing their friends. And the number 3 reason was the fact they wanted to get the improvement from Toastmasters. And we realized right then why. I got a fly flying around the car here. I'm sorry about that. You know, I didn't invite them to the seminar tonight. Anyway, we realized immediately why our club was failing. We stopped being a fun, friendly environment. We had 2 presidents in a row who were sort of draconian. They were very negative. They were very authoritative. One was very authoritative, and one was very, I would say, like non-assertive. He was this very quiet individual. There was no energy that came out of him, but it wasn't fun. And what we learned is when the meetings aren't fun, people stop coming. Now, I don't mean funny. Fun was productive. Fun was good feedback. Fun was running on time. Fun was, like I said, the time was spent really well. And so we have a policy in our club that we have to maintain a fun, friendly environment. And the meeting, if it goes off the rails, which they do, at the end of the meeting, we always put it back on the rails, so it's a fun, friendly environment. If we have upsets between people, we pull them off to the side, and we handle them, and we make sure we return it to a fun, friendly environment. So that's one of the things that's a fun environment. One of the other things that was going on was that our meetings were starting late and ending late. And this may seem like a minor thing, but we have a 3-hour meeting. It's a weekend meeting, and it goes from 9 to 12, 9 in the morning to noon. And we're starting as much as 20 minutes late. And when we were starting late, it was sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because members would come late because they knew it was going to start late. And when I became president, I said, okay, we're going to start the meeting at 9 o'clock, so please be here at 5 to 9, and we're going to change it. It only took 3 months for the members to start coming to the meeting on time. But I started that meeting at 9 o'clock, and sometimes there were only 3 people sitting in the audience, but we started the meeting on time and we got it running on time. So one of the real critical have a very successful start on time or run time, which means all your segments are timely, and ending the meeting on time, because we have a contract with the people who come to us that they agree to give us this time. They don't agree to give us 20 minutes after, or show up and not do anything for 20 minutes. So we really put that in, that we start on time and we end on time, and in between we run on time. And whenever our meeting starts to run off, and this has happened over the years, we see our membership drop. Okay, so that was one of the fundamentals we put in. Now the thing that really turned it around, clubs, we went to every member under the old legacy program now, but we asked the points, and we're taking 3 years to do their CC, which meant they were speaking about every 4 months or something. And so what we wanted them to speak was every 4 or 5 weeks. And actually what happened was, when we put that in and we started really pushing people in a nice way to get through their manual faster, because they were speaking more frequently, they
Richard, it looks like we may have lost Lance.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Okay, great. I think I want people doing the program. And when they did the program, their life changed. And when their life changed, they started to love doing Toastmasters, because they became more competent, they became more confident, they got the twinkle in the, and they were excited about the program because they were actually doing the program. And one of the, I sort of look at Toastmasters like going to the gym. And it's like, if you go to the gym and you work out one day and you get up the next day and you go, I'm so sore, I'm not going to go back to the gym for 6 months. That's like giving your icebreaker and go, I'm so nervous, I'm not going to speak for 6 months. What happens is, the gain you got that one day from exercising. So the same thing when you get up to speak, you lose all the gain you got from that one time in speaking. But when you start speaking frequently, you start keeping the gain and your competency starts going up. So getting people to go through the program and doing 10 speeches a year is one of the, and I turn around and I looked at what happened in the club and I've watched the clubs, and anybody who knows me knows I've been, as Richard was introducing, I've worked with over 80 districts since I won the world championship to really build better clubs in Toastmasters, because I think, you know, Toastmasters lives and dies at the club level, and we can change so many people's lives with it. But I looked at clubs fail, and the first reason is that around us, we had 5 of us who decided to own the club. And what I mean by own the club is that we took responsibility to see if the club succeeded. If you have a business, somebody owns the business and they solve the problems in the business. They don't allow the problems to continue over and over and over again. But there's a lot of Toastmasters clubs that they go, we need to get new members in. Oh yeah, we got to do that. You know, we got to get more, we got to get some people through their educational programs. Yeah, we really need to do that. But nobody sits down and goes, okay, I'm the one that's going to make that happen. Let's go. Or there's 5 of us here. We're going to make sure this happens. So the number one reason I've seen the clubs fail is that nobody owns the club. The number 2 reason is they don't do the program. And the Toastmasters program is the educational program. It used to be the legacy program. Now it's Pathways. And quite honestly, I mean, I don't want to go down the Pathways rabbit hole right now. I'm not crazy about Pathways at all, but it is what we have. But if you just speak, if you do those programs and you get your members to speak on a frequent basis, they're going to get the benefit of speaking on a regular basis. So the 3rd reason that clubs fail is that they don't promote and they don't bring in new members. But if somebody owns the club, making sure that it's going to stay there, you get people to do the program and they start winning with the program and you promote to new members, I've seen that clubs, you know, that clubs expand. And of course, owning the club there's a lot of steps to go with that. The other thing that I saw that we really worked on in the club was that there are 4 areas of development in Toastmasters. We've been known for years as a communication and public speaking organization. What was it, 10 years ago or something, we changed to where leaders are made. But there's 4 specific areas of development that have changed my life, and I feel people get out of Toastmasters. The first one is speaking. And that is prepared speeches, and it's also table topics. I probably had as much gain from table topics as being able to answer an unexpected question out in life with that skill as I was winning or doing prepared speaking. The second area is being what we call in Toastmasters an evaluator. In my club, we call it a coach. And the reason is people don't hire an executive evaluator. They don't hire an executive coach or an executive, a speech evaluator. They hire a speaking coach. And the idea is we want to coach people to a higher level of competence. And so we really focus on that in the club. It's not just about giving an evaluation. It's about making sure that the feedback we give you makes you into a more competent individual. And if we all look throughout our lives, there's probably people around us throughout our years that were there and helped us become a more competent individual. And those are very valuable people to us. And really, to me, the final product of the Toastmasters organization is not a competent leader. It's not a competent speaker, but it's someone who can make and develop in another a competent leader and a competent speaker. It's someone who can coach people effectively and improve the competency and the abilities of others. And that's a phenomenal skill to have in life. And I've learned so much in Toastmasters on how to work with other people. And what I do on a daily basis in my life outside of Toastmasters is working with people, building their competence, and learning how to give them feedback and finding out what's going on with them, why they're not succeeding, and figuring out how they can become more successful with the businesses I work with. Third area of development is effective meeting management. And we learn that starting being a table topics master, then a general evaluator, then a Toastmaster. We learn how to run the meeting on time, run it effectively. And in most businesses, people hate going to meetings because they don't start on time, they don't end on time, and everything in the middle is a waste of time. And people love coming to my meetings when I've held them because the room's set up properly. There's a bottle of water. There's a On every seat, there's an agenda. I'm at the front door greeting them when they come in. It's just like a Toastmasters meeting for me. I learned how to do that at Toastmasters. The meetings run on time or they end early. I don't allow people to go off and go off on some tangent and occupy the meeting. We run it according to what the agenda is. Everybody knows I'm in charge of it. And I have people go, I love coming to your meetings. And that has made a huge difference in my success outside of Toastmasters. And then the third area of development is the leadership roles we learned by being an officer in the club and taking responsibility for running the organization. And so with my club, we really took every one of those things seriously. When you were Toastmaster, you were expected to run the meeting on time. You were expected to work out the timing sequences, the introductions, work with all the speakers and get their introductions in and have the whole meeting worked out. And so the members developed those skills. And that was one of the big areas of development that we had. And then when people were club officers, you were expected to do the job, but we really worked with you to make sure you were winning on the job as well. We have a lot of our own policy that we wrote and things on how to do it properly. And we filled in a lot of holes that Toastmasters didn't have covered, especially I think every club has its own unique characteristics for it. So Toastmasters gives us an overall sort of template on how we run the club. We need to figure out how does our club run the best. And that's really what we did, because we said we had that ownership for ownership in the club. And with that, there's a couple of things I just want to hit on that I think I looked at, we run into, and why a lot of times we come into Toastmasters and the clubs fail or people are struggling. And I've hit on the fact that communication has been a relatively challenging point for us in life. And the other thing is our creativity winds up getting curbed a lot as we get socialized. When we were little kids, life was exciting and every day was the coolest thing, and we could be happy playing with a stick in a box, and then we had our parents telling us to sit there and be quiet and be still. And there came a time, I remember in my life, where I got ready to do something. I looked at my mom and dad and I thought, what would they do or say if I did that? And then based on what they would do or say, that determined what I would do. And at that moment, I started to give over my own creativity to what I call the big people or the authorities in my life. And then the same thing happened in school. I learned if I wanted to succeed in school, creativity was not something I was rewarded for. I was rewarded for sitting in the seat at the right time, figuring out studying what other people figured out, and answering the questions on the test. I was, like I said, I was never encouraged to give it original thought, usually when I was in school. And then I get to work and they say, here's your desk, sit here, show up on time, don't rock the boat. And if we like you, at some point we'll promote you. And this happens to a lot of people in life where they turn off their own creativity, turn off their own being the master of their own destiny, and they're waiting for people to open the door for them and give them the opportunity because they've sort of been socialized into that. And the Toastmasters environment, people come into that and they have been trained that if they show up on time and sit in the seat, that they're going to succeed. And that's the surest way for your club to die. When I was a kid, my parents had taken me to a lot of sort of religious retreats and stuff. And I remember we were at one and this minister's up in front and he said, sitting in a church won't make you into a Christian any more than sitting in a hen house will make you into a chicken. And it's the same thing in the Toastmasters club. Coming to a Toastmasters club and sitting in the club isn't going to make you into a speaker or a leader any more than sitting in a hen house is going to make you into a chicken. You got to get up and do it. And it's a little unnerving for people because we've been rewarded most of our life for sitting there and being quiet and following the rules and not rocking the boat. And this is where we actually learn to stand on our feet. So we have that mentality. The other thing I've seen is a lot of people have what I call a failure mentality. I know in the Peanuts cartoon, Lucy used to say Charlie Brown had a failure face. He had a failure mentality. But most people have gone through life, they have more failure than they do success. And they've tried so many things in life, and then they come to Toastmasters, they have these hopes. And they can default really easy to like, well, this is one more in life. Just isn't going to work out is saying, no, this work. Let's figure out how to make this thing work. And so we have the failure component that most people are carrying around. And I had a certain amount of that. And because of the group, and quite honestly, I think a lot of you know Roberta Perry was just such a spark plug in our club. And there were so many times the club was struggling or the meeting was going off the rails, and Roberta was there to say, nope, we're going to put it back on. This is what we're going to do. And you realize you could actually make this thing happen, make it go right. You didn't have to fail at it. And you start to get the confidence you can win and succeed. And these are the real benefits to me in Toastmasters. It's got to be a safe place to fail, but at the same token, you want to have it, you know, as people fail, they're not afraid to fail anymore. And so they're willing to go forward and succeed with it. And on it, so like I said, to me, we're really dealing with the essence of the human existence in this organization. We're giving people an opportunity to stand up, speak, and lead, where most of the times in their life, they're not given those opportunities. We're willing to listen to them. We're willing to allow them to help us with good coaching and feedback, and that their input's important to us. We actually allow them to run and organize the meetings and take control and take a bigger sphere of their life and put into that. And then eventually we allow them to run an organization. And I do a whole talk, and actually I was talking yesterday at another meeting that with Smedley One that Richard was on with me on. I really look at Toastmasters as sort of like an internship, where you come in and you have to run this organization, and it's a great place to make mistakes, figure out what your strengths are, figure out what your weaknesses are, strengthen your weaknesses, and identify the fact that I am really good at some components on this, so that when you go outside of Toastmasters, you can be more successful. One of the things we do too at Renaissance Speakers is we start the meeting off, and one of the things we ask every meeting is speakers that spoke outside the club. And anybody who spoke outside the club gives just a real quick, where'd you speak, how many people, were there. We reward people that speak outside the club, because that's the product. We want people actually going out in the world doing things. We don't just want you to speak in Toastmasters. So we reward that in the club. And so that, you know, people, if they did do something, they can tell the club, I went out and used my Toastmaster skills along that line. So just to sort of summarize this thing around is that in building the club up, like I said, we really took ownership of it. We got everybody to do the program, and then we started promoting the club. And as the members were winning in the club, they started bringing the members in because they were winning by doing the program. And we focused on what I call the 4 years of development, which is the speaking, the coaching, the meeting management, and the leadership. And then we also created a club culture that if you're in the club, we expect you to be there on time. We expect you to wear all the different hats and take all the different responsibilities. If you come to the club and you only want to speak and you only show up on those days, we're going to have a chat with you and say that's not what the program is. And when we brought people into the club and new members who walked through the program, what was expected of them. And if they weren't interested in that, ask them to they'll probably need to go join another club, not our club. This is how our club runs. We had high standards. And one of the things I know is that high standards actually build a great organization and a strong club. Weak standards build a weak club. And I've seen a lot of Toastmasters clubs that they're trying to get membership, so they seem to lower their standards down to get more membership. And that's the surest way to kill your club. Take your standards up higher. We want better people in the club, not worse people from that standpoint. So with that, let me take a little break here. We've been going about 30 minutes or so, and see if I got a timing thing up there. I'm flipping through I got a yellow card up there, so I saw that. I had to flip on my phone. Let's, Richard, if we can, let's take some Q&A from people and have some dialogue here. That'd be fun. Because I'm sort of going through as I zip down the 5 here, the different points that I have, but let's address some specific issues that people have. You're still muted, Richard, so.
Lance, while Richard is unmuting, Marcus asked a question in the chat. How do you respond when the general evaluator loses track of the GE's responsibility?
Well, that's part of develop, that's part of the development you have. As an officer in the club, say the president and vice president of education, sit down with them afterwards and say, this is, okay, let me give you some feedback on your general evaluator feedback on that. And I've started about 16 clubs, and you take brand new people. I've had general evaluators stand up and they evaluated everybody's speech. I'm going, what are you doing? After the meeting, they said, oh, I thought I evaluated the speeches. I said, no, that's what the speech evaluators are for. But you have to give a feedback. The other thing that we've done is we sort of have a general evaluator form that said, here are the points we want you to report on. Here are the points we want you to watch. Okay, did the meeting run on time? Did the Toastmaster have a theme? Did they introduce people properly? From the standpoint, how did the table topics master do? We have a specific. We will always want the table topics question answered first, ask first, and then pick the person that they're going to ask. And we have a calling order where the people that don't have a role, the functionaries, coaches, and then the speakers as the calling order. So if you call speakers up front, you're going to get the general evaluator is going to say, look, know your calling order. So we expect that. And, introductions on the speakers, transitions, the whole thing, but did the meeting run on time? So we have a form that we give to the person so they have something that we can now, just like you would on a speaker, we can say, here's what's expected, here's what you did. And then we always do it with a lot of love and understanding. We don't beat up our people because we keep a fun, friendly environment. But I think you need to give the feedback after the meeting, not during the meeting. Let the person, it's a safe place to fail. Let them fail, screw up, and then talk to them afterwards. This is what you should, let me give you some feedback on your general evaluation.
Lance, I have a question. In your introduction, you mentioned the club was built to 95 members. How did you accomplish that? And then, do you think the club got too big? How do you keep people involved if there's 95 members?
I got to tell, well, first of all, most of your clubs, you have about 30% of your membership that's turning over. Okay, so Toastmasters International runs, we roll over somewhere between 35 and 40% of membership, and that happens at the club level. We did a couple things. First of all, it was a lot of fun having a club that big. It was a tremendous amount of energy, and we put in an extra position. Instead of the vice president of education doing all the scheduling, we also put in a vice president of production that just did scheduling, and the vice president of education just followed education achievement. But we expanded the club delivery to meet the demands of the membership. And I see this with a lot of clubs where, especially like a corporate club where they meet at noon, once a week, and they have a 1 hour meeting, and they build up to like over 30 members, and they only have 3 speakers in a meeting, or 2 or 3 speakers, and they can't get the people through their program. What we did is we went to 2 meetings a week the second half of the year. And then after our meeting, we usually go to lunch. The weekend, we'd have 3 or 4 speakers at lunch. And if anybody had an opportunity, if anybody who was speaking outside the club, have a video. And we to meet the education requirements of the membership, we didn't cap the delivery of the club based on the time of the club. And that's it's just the same thing you do in a business. If you had a bakery, you're running an 8 hour shift, and all of a sudden you get the demand for your baking goods are more than you can do in 8 hours, you put on another shift and you bake more stuff. You don't say, I'm sorry, we're only baking so many loaves of bread today. You go, no, we got to figure out how to deliver more. And so we expanded the delivery of the club at that point. But yeah, we with 95 members, and understand, I said we had, of that, we probably had a good 25 of those that were in some sort of a transition where they'd moved, they were going back to school, they were pregnant, whatever, they were doing something, they weren't that active. So with 95, we probably had about 70 active, but we wound up with 57 educational completions. So we got 57 of those 70 through 10 speeches with their education completions in it. And those are the types of metrics that you have to run on it. But the big thing is, what you do is you have to expand your delivery to fulfill the needs of your membership, because the members won't come if there's not value, if they're not getting value out of the program, and they get value out of the program by doing the program.
I think he pretty much answered your question, but Dr. Michael Alexander, did you have a follow-up question for Lance? Okay, I guess not. Anybody else a question for Lance Miller? Either speaking or building a championship club. Yes, Ralph, you're on mute though.
Lance, I got the impression listening to your CD on your speech and from other tidbits that staying within the bounds of qualification is really a matter of being in control of your speech. Each time segment goes with a different part of your speech, and if you practice enough, you know it, you don't need a clock, you know exactly where you are. Would you agree with that conception?
Well, here's the point. You got to know your speech, not have it memorized. That's one thing. It's a completely different thing to know it. And you have to know where you need to be when the green light comes on, know where you should be with the yellow, know where you should be with the red, so that you're not thrown off by it. So yeah, you should be familiar enough with the fact that it's going to come in, but when those lights come up, you should know, that you're familiar with your timing on where you should be, and you're not relying on the lights, which I used to do in all my early competitions. I really let the lights dictate the speed at which I was delivering the speech. And I know Richard said I went over 2 seconds. My recollection was when I talked to the timers in 2003, I went over 1 second, but 2 seconds, it's still, I just went 1 second. There's gonna be a great speech in this someday, but right now I'm just, irritated, so, it's better than go over 1 second to me. That makes a great speech. Going over 35 seconds, it's like, well, boy, you really screwed up. But anyway, it was so close. But what happened, because I went over what I recall was 1 second, I really, really worked on that timing, and I also, Dana Lamont, he was at that regional, and I was talking to him, and Dana, as he does, he goes, Lance, it's a 5 to 7 minute speech contest. It's not 7.5 minutes. They give you 30 seconds leeway. Of course, I'm sitting right next to him, and he's talking to me like I'm sitting across the room. And I sat there and I went, I feel about as stupid as I can feel right now. It is a 5 to 7 minute speech contest, but I used to try to get 7:25 out of every speech. And after that, I just worked on getting 5 to 7 minutes. I was fine. But yeah, you need to know your timing.
So recap, Lance, you talked about 3 important things that you surveyed, and the number 1 was fun. See
Right.
friends was number 2, and number 3 was improve from Toastmasters by speaking. You also talked about 4 areas where they can improve: speaking, evaluation, which your club calls coach. And I've attended Renaissance speakers several times, a number of times over the years. If you're ever able, they're not meeting in Hollywood. Maybe you can share with us where the club meets. You also talked about effective meeting management, which we all learn, and of course, leadership skills at the club and beyond. So I haven't attended the new location. Where does the Renaissance speakers now meet? Sounds like you're still on Sundays.
We're still on Sundays, and we moved to, of course, we're a Church of Scientology based club, and we moved to the church in Pasadena, but we haven't been there because COVID's been, and we meet virtually every week. We have never had a meeting there yet. So on that, but they've got a beautiful facility there right on Raymond and Colorado, Old Town, and so we're looking forward to getting in there once things open up again. But you're welcome to join us online, and we meet 9 to noon on Sunday mornings. And it's interesting. One of the other things that was very, I have a tendency to analyze things and go, well, why is this working? Our church doesn't have a Sunday morning service. And so it was a time that everybody had off, and they'd usually sleep in and read the paper and eat an omelet or something. And we wound up having the meeting then, and it was sort of a wasted time, other than you were relaxing, enjoying yourself, but it wasn't a real productive time for people. And we wound up with not a lot of conflicts at that time for for the members. And that was one of the things that's kept it really stable, because people get so busy with things now. And so all of a sudden what happens is they have a Wednesday night and they can't do it on Wednesday night anymore. So, but also guests are welcome to attend. We have a lot of guests because of my speaking. We have guests come from all over the world all the time and it's funny. It's sort of everybody jokes about it, but out in the world, my club is known as Lance Miller's Club because I talk about Renaissance speakers all the time. I'm very proud of it, but my club takes exception to that it's not my club. And
I know of at least one past international director that's also done quite well in Toastmasters. A number of your members have. Yes. Roberta Perry's a member of the club too.
Exactly.
Anna has a question. Anna Napoli.
Okay.
Napoli.
Yes. Thank you, Richard. Yes, Lance, I want to know, in this club of yours that is so good and so strong and a leader of the clubs, how was your transition to Pathways? Did you lose any members? Did you have some of those older members that they were in the legacy and really enjoying the legacy educational program? How did they handle Pathways, and did you lose any of the members?
We didn't lose any to Pathways, but it was, I would just say we used to play a game with a ball and a net. It's called basketball. And now we play a game with a ball and a net, and it's called water polo. And that's sort of, to me, what happened with Pathways. But we had a number of members that were resistive to it. And we worked with them. We have a Pathways champion in our club who, works with them to try to get them on, on the program and doing it. And just say, look, one of the things too, we've just said, instead of here's this Pathways program and it says to do this specific thing and you're supposed to watch these videos, just do the speech and we're going to evaluate you by that program. And that's what we did a lot with the CCs and stuff too. You did a speech and then you said, well, I'm going to do number 5 vocal variety with that, or I'm going to do this one as working with words, and stuff. So, okay, I'm going to do my speech, but evaluate me on that. So we just kept it fun for people. And we had someone who helped them go in, but man, I don't necessarily want to go down this rabbit hole, but the Pathways interface is one of the worst interfaces I've ever seen. And the way that program is set up, to me, it's worse than COVID. But anyway, my concern is that we've had, it's my understanding, a pretty significant drop in membership in Toastmasters, and my concern is that they'll assign it to COVID. And like I said, you got to call a spade a spade. You got to find you have to have a right diagnosis to solve the problem. But anyway, we'll see. The thing is, it's a program we got. We're pushing with it as much as we can. I've done 3 level 5s in it, so it's not something that I haven't worked with. So. On it. But to answer your question, no, we didn't lose any members over it, but we had a lot of resistance on it. And we had a high affinity for the club. And people loved the club. They didn't want to leave the club, but there was a lot of resistance to Pathways. But that was the fun-friendly part. And that's what the fun-friendly part is what kept in the club. And then we had the program. And so we're using, again, loving them, caring for them, and then getting them on the Pathways program and working them through that.
So with your 3 level 5 that you have completed, did you watch the videos or did you just do the speeches?
Just did the speeches. quite honestly, just, I mean, we said, we start to go down thing. There's not a whole lot I haven't done in speaking. I'm not in Toastmasters because I need to be a better speaker. I'm in Toastmasters because I want to maintain my club. I want to help other people get more out of the program. It's sort of like I talk about, really the final product to me is Toastmasters is making other people more competent. And I want to be here to help other people get more out of the program. I go through the examples. I typically look at the evaluation forms. I look at the objectives of the speech and what needs to be done on it and stuff. I know how to do PowerPoints. I've done tons of podcasts. I've got 5,000 speeches under my belt. It's not like I got to go do a Pathways program to improve my speaking. I look at the Pathways program and I look at some of it and I go, I'm supposed to learn from this? Are you kidding me? Not me, but I'm going, someone's supposed to learn from this? Okay, I think it's going to confuse people more. It's going to help them. But the thing is, in life, you sort of got to take what you've got and make it work. And that's one of the things I say with Pathways. That's what we got right now. We got to make it work. So let's make it work. It's not going away. So,
Lance, somebody put in the chat box, great ideas, but I missed some of them or half of them. I'd be willing to pay for a transcript. Have you written this out, the speech out?
Look, I've got a lot of it's on my Championship Club CD. I've got it's the basic information's on there. I've got how to promote and market a club. I've got leadership for a championship club. That's why I've recorded a lot of information. Those are on my websites and they're free. They're downloads. I have free speaking tips cards, free speech evaluation tips cards. I have free how to build a championship club tips card on the website. You can download for free because I've tried to make this available to Toastmasters and stuff. I'm not in a situation that I can just produce everything and spend hours and hours a week doing Toastmasters stuff for free all the time. That's why I created some products that I'd make 20 bucks on here and there so that I could continue to do it. But anyway, that most of this material's on there. And then I've got a bunch of these, since COVID's been going on and we've been doing all this virtual stuff, I've recorded a bunch of these seminars. And again, it's just a matter of time. I'm trying to get it set up on my website where I can post a half a dozen or a dozen presentations that people can go online and listen to themselves. And I just have them on that because I'm really busy with my business and stuff now. And so I still do as much with Toastmasters as I can, but I'm just trying to make sure the information's available if people want to find it.
Okay. And Paul has put in your link to your website. Thank you, Paul Brooks. So those who are interested in more information or some of Lance's products, there you go. We have a few more minutes. Does anybody else have a question for Lance about building a championship club or being a championship speaker? Yeah, I thought I saw somebody's hand. Just go ahead and ask the question if you have. David, is that your hand up or are you? You're on mute. You're on mute though. Okay, I'm not sure if he has a question or he's adjusting his camera. All right, thank you very much, Lance. What a treat, and in his car, and thank you, Lance, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. You've done so much for Toastmasters. Thank you for all you continue to do.
You're very, very welcome, and glad to do it again sometime.
Thank you, Lance.